All right, and we are live a full 2 minutes early. What's up, everybody? What's up, everyone? I see some of y'all from the previous stream have come back over. I'm gonna be turning that light off here in a minute. I just wanted to show off T-shirt that my girlfriend got me. I love this shirt. I'm a big fan of the Misfits. Also show off my veiny thick forearms. See that shit? You see, Infred loves to fucking out angle his camera, make himself look all Chad like. Here I am doing the same thing. Although I don't need no angle to look big. I am big. Well, I'm not that big. I weigh about 187 pounds at 5'11", but my diet is working out pretty well. I can kind of see some blurry ab lines in the right lining when I look in the mirror. But my abs do pop out. They do kind of pop out when I do a lot of abdominal work. But I've got, I think, a solid 5 to 10 pounds to lose before I've got some legit six-pack abs. So yeah, holy shit. I'm not even gone like 15 minutes, and y'all are talking about why having kids is bourgeois. Jesus Christ. I'm not a socialist because I make good money being a libcuck. I mean, yeah, basically. Let's see. A fascist killed a baby today. Did you? Let's see what we got here. The rich want you to have kids so they can participate in production and consumption. Yeah, in all seriousness, though, it would really fuck capitalism if population levels were to stabilize. So if, climate change, environmental depletion don't kill capitalism, if the falling rate of profit doesn't kill capitalism, there's a chance that by the 2100s, when population levels stabilize and global population growth pretty much peaks at 12, 11 billion, because it's set to peak at about 10 to 11 billion by the year 2100. It's going to kind of level off and not really grow anymore after that. Capitalism is a system of infinite growth, and when your population isn't growing indefinitely, that's a bit of a problem. But anyways, that is not what I'm here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today is the Pakman. So let me share my screen, get my audio going. And here we are. Let me get my water. So, evidently, the Pakman is not a socialist. Excuse me. He confronts me. Why aren't I a socialist? This is the one, right? Yeah, all right. Let's do this. All right. Let's let David Pakman, political analyst and commentator, explain why he is not a socialist. Let us see the intricate reasons that he gives. Let's do this.
Let's speak next to Zach from Toronto, Canada. Zach, you're on the air.
Hey David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I was curious because I saw a video on you talking about socialism. I was curious of your reasoning of why you think the means of production should be privately owned rather than publicly owned.
Well, I approach it a different way. My approach would be why
that you want them both public and privately owned. Employee joint stock ownership in a company. Fuck yeah. Just like Amazon, guys, technically Amazon is communist if you think about it, because it has joint employees stock options. So the employees own shares in the company. So they're, since they own shares in the company, that means they own part of the company. And since the company is capital, that technically means that they are worker owners. You know what I'm saying? Communism is when you own shares in the same company that you work for and have employee stock options. And the more stock options that you have, the bigger your 401k, the more communister that it is.
Why would the means of production, which might be built by an individual, paid for by an individual...
He's talking too slow. I'm going to speed this up a bit. We'll start
way. My approach would be, why would the means of production, which might be built by an individual, paid for by an individual, insured by an individual, financed by an individual, why should ownership be taken away and either made societal or, in a communistic sense, state-owned? Why would we do that? What would be the justification from taking it away from the individual that built it?
Because they didn't build it, you fucking moron. There are workers that they hired underneath to build it. There are other people that built it. You know, Jeff Bezos didn't build Amazon. You know, Jeff Bezos is not the one producing or all of the goods or distributing the goods at Amazon. All right. Nobody is denying that capitalists put work into the construction of their business. The argument is that the work that they do is disproportionately less to the collective labor performed by all of the employees that they hire in the production process and in the running and maintenance and the insuring of that company. So since they have all these people working underneath that are all also contributing their own work, and since Jeff Bezos isn't fucking working thousands of times harder than the average person, and since all these people spend most of their lives at work, you know, since they run the company, they make this whole process possible, they make Jeff Bezos lots of money, then, you know, and they spend most of their waking hours at work and they're at this company, then they should have some sort of collective say in what to do with the fruits of that labor. People should have a say in what is done with the fruits of their labor. You know, should the fruits of that labor go to benefit society, or should it go to be wasted on decadent luxury that billionaires indulge in? You know, should the fruits of that labor go to making sure we give healthcare to sick people or putting food in the mouths of hungry children? Or should those super profits, those big bucks, those big profits go to the billionaire oligarchs who spawn little private markets among themselves, private services among themselves, where they fly the Lolita Express, they fly jet airway expresses across the world where they can get away with raping children. You know what I mean? So I'm afraid to say, Pakman, that if you are in favor of capitalism, if you really are in favor of the reproduction of this system, then I am afraid to say that you're basically in favor of billionaire oligarchs hoarding untold, unfathomable amounts of money while they perpetuate conspiracies against the public, perpetuate wars and mass murder in their nation's name, and as well as private businesses where they can engage in cannibalism and child raping in the privacy of their own private islands and homes. That's the kind of system. Unfortunately, that is the outcome that you are inadvertently supporting by being a liberal shitlib.
Huh, okay. I guess I never thought about it from like the latter perspective.
Does he only accept calls from jackasses? Like, does he only take calls from people who are like total noobs when it comes to the subject that can't possibly formulate another response besides like, oh, well, I haven't really thought about it like that? Does he like have this shit vetted? Like really? Is he like, oh, you want to call him to the Pakman show? You have to fail an IQ test and then you can call him. Otherwise, someone who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about would call in and absolutely blow him the fuck out? Holy shit. He's literally just saying, well, they earned it. No, they fucking didn't. Fuck you. Fucking seriously.
Never thought about it from like the latter perspective.
Well, I mean, apply it to anything, right? So you're sort of like, for me, the action that would be required to be justified would be, why would we be allowed to change the ownership structure of something that someone built? If you go to school and you learn plumbing, for example, and then you go and you buy all the plumbing equipment, you might take out a loan to buy that plumbing equipment, and you're a plumber for a bunch of time, and then at a certain point you get big enough where you start hiring apprentice plumbers and all these different things. So it's your business, you own the equipment, you hire the employees. what would be the justification for saying, okay, now the business is no longer yours. Now it belongs to all of your employees, or it belongs to the state? What would be
okay, so the justification is the fact that you're now exploiting wage labor. You're now extracting rents and surplus value from other people. You are no longer working. You are taking credit for work other people are doing. That's what wage labor is. Also, nobody's saying that small businesses don't exist under socialism, idiot. Why are you? This is what I can't stand. People will conflate like a small plumbing business with mega corporations like Amazon, like tech giants with big name manufacturing and so on. These companies that employ thousands of people, tens, hundreds of thousands of people across the globe that the owners of the company don't even know personally, that they've never met. And some of these factories that they've never even walked around in, and yet these people that own shares in this company and manipulate and dominate these markets are the ones that get to have a say from a clandestine distance. No, like, dude, it isn't the case where it's Dick Bob opens a plumbing business and the government's coming in to take his little plumbing business where he hires some people under him. No, that's not it. The notion is that the utilities companies, from gas and electric to the internet, to the roads that we drive, to the healthcare system that we need, to all these vast services and life-supporting goods and non-price inelastic goods that are necessary to participate in a modern first world society should not be the property of private oligarchs that are trying to fleece the general public for as much as they can possibly squeeze out of them. That is the idea. But you don't want to think about that. You don't want to look at the big picture because you don't want to look at the big picture because you, in part, benefit from the very system that you're upholding right now because he benefits from it. I've pointed this out in a previous live stream before. Let me show you his Patreon. Guys, fuck, one reason why he doesn't want to overthrow capitalism. I am counting 5,224 reasons why David Pakman will never change his mind. I could call in David Pakman. In fact, how do I call David Pakman? Let me give him a piece of my mind. How do I call this motherfucker? Like, comment in the comment section below if you know how I can call David Pakman, because I would like to do that here momentarily. But for now, let's finish this video up.
justification for that?
I'm not sure, actually.
The justification, not for the small business, but for the big business, is that after a certain point, you have a handful of individuals that are just gambling with money on the stock market, that are just manipulating markets, that are, taking advantage of tax breaks and loopholes in the law to buy back their own stocks, resell them, and basically exploit all these financial instruments to siphon as much wealth out of the system as possible. We're talking about people who hire programmers to create algorithmic artificial intelligence and hedge fund machines, which basically are in and out of day trading hedge funds and stocks hedging pennies, trillions of pennies off of the market, basically. We're talking about people that are manipulating, that own all this capital, that have all these investments, that are basically in and out of these stocks, who buy and sell politicians to lobby various policies, and participating in this very zero-sum game strategy, where they actively conspire against the public to fleece everyone for everything that they fucking got. Nobody's talking about your little private plumbing business, Pac-Man. Nobody's coming for your little fucking show here, bro. Like, these are the people that we're talking about when we talk about making this shit public property. Small businesses are but mouses dancing around giant elephants. I believe that's how the phrase goes. But I'm just surprised, no one's ever called and explain to David Pakman exactly how this works, because I'm willing to bet if I put it this way that Pakman would basically say that he agrees and no, that's why we need social democracy. No, because your sock dems don't want to take control of the means of production. They just want to break up the big banks. Like we need to break up these corporations. We need to break them up so that we have more competition, and more competition means more friendly consumerism. And so, no, motherfucker, don't break that shit up. Nationalize it. You know what I mean? Nationalize it. Start running it according to a national plan.
I'm personally not a socialist, but I'm interested in socialist theory, and I was curious of why you personally weren't a socialist, but I mean that does make sense.
So I have a ton of videos about why I'm not a socialist, but to answer that specific question, it's because I don't think there's any justification for it.
I do. I absolutely think there's justification for seizing these people's property. Look, again, they're not the ones doing the work. Even if they were with that company from the start and they saw it rise and grow into this big transnational corporation that's all across the planet that provides this wonderful service, even if that's the case, not saying that work didn't go into them in the founding of that business, but that the work that they did is disproportionately less to the work and contribution of the tens of thousands of people that allowed that business to flourish in the first place. Number two, just because you put work into your business does not mean that you earned it. You took a risk. You took a risk on something that could have flopped and could have failed. The reason why it even grew to that size is because it offers a use value or a utility that people use. So markets, so it comes down to the demand. Like, you didn't fucking grow that business. I mean, you're not really that much to thank for its success. Market demand is, you just happen to think of something that people liked or needed that met market demand. What if you develop a really potent nervous system stimulant, or you develop some pharmaceutical drugs that are extremely addictive? That's a form of meeting market demand, and you could make millions of dollars legally pushing your dope, peddling dope. I mean, that's what the pharmaceutical companies are nowadays. They're legalized cartels. Like, why don't people call him out on this shit? This is easy. I'm going to watch this next. First comments. Be petty bourgeois, be against socialism. Imagine my shock. Yeah, exactly. Reason is if you follow the conditions which create massive monopolies and cartels and regular capture and endless war, you justify those outcomes. To oppose the outcomes, you must oppose the cause. Exactly. Bernie Sanders did play his historic role in platforming the left to the mainstream of the United States, but ultimately he did his share of harm to the cause. Ultimately, Bernie Sanders failed to fulfill his historic role in the establishment of an independent left-wing movement. He had the political capital, the numbers, and the power and the influence behind him to establish a socialist party or a progressive left party, all right, or establish a coalition of parties. He could have started a Bernie party. He could have thrown all of his support behind the Green Party. He could have thrown all of his support behind Jill Stein in 2016 or Howie Hawkins in 2020, and he could have done that, sank tens of billions of dollars, and legitimized the Green Party, which, mind you, isn't even really that left wing. They're a left of center social democrat green petty bourgeois party. Like, that's really what they are. They're not even like really socialists. I mean, I think there are socialists within the Green Party, but the Green Party itself is not socialist. It's petty bourgeois, left of center, democratic socialist, social democrat party with, I think, opportunistic leadership. David Pakman has a contact page. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Let's contact David Pakman. Let's do this shit. I'm now okay. So davidpakman.com/discord. Let's do this. I hope I don't have to go through a fucking paywall, fucking price barrier for this shit. Davidpakman.com. Here, let me call in. Let me call in. Yes, I want to join the Pac-Man show. Okay, cool. Oh, good. There's no fucking verification needed. So what do? When does Pakman go live? To call in the show, queuing members, waiting lobby. The Pakman Town Hall starts in 10 minutes. Oh, never mind. That was forever ago. Announcements. I want to call into the show. I want to bother David Pakman. Cool. Well, I'm in his server now. I don't know what to do from here. Anyways, as I was saying, yeah, I mean, he's just a lib. Same goes with like Kyle Kalinske, people of this consciousness. I mean, it's good that they talk about these things, but they're ultimately not the end of the road. And I think that the movements that they're a part of is more radical than they are, basically. Bernie Sanders being the social democrat that he became as he became a bourgeois politician, sadly became a tailist of the Democratic Party. He's not what he was as a young man. I 100% agree. I think you just put it as well as one could possibly put it. He fundamentally was a tailist in the end, and the same goes with the rest of these opportunistic, lesser of two evil progressives. Like, it's ridiculous. So, transition to new topic, because there actually is something else I want to talk about. Caller confronts me. That was hardly a confrontation. The dude just rolled over and didn't even challenge you or put any pushback. So, all right, let's hear. So I'm going to go ahead and react to another Pakman video. We're going to react to this shit here in a minute, but for now, briefly, this is something that I wanted to talk about in my car as I was driving home, and I eventually will. I plan on it. But in summary of the video that I'm going to be shooting next time I feel like it, I'm going to be talking about electoralism as a viable strategy. I just want to talk about this briefly. Electoralism is a viable strategy in the sense that it is free advertising for socialist candidates, and if you do happen to get socialist candidates elected, you are literally putting the levers of power in their hands. With that being said, democratic socialism or the revolution at the ballot box has its hard limits. So here are the issues that democratic socialists, or the voting strategy is going to get you. These are the issues you're going to run into. So I was reading Austin Murphy's Triumph of Evil, right? Austin Murphy's Triumph of Evil, where he talks about revolution at the ballot box near the end. It's a very good book, highly recommend it. He talks about the revolution at the ballot box. Well, within the context of a parliamentary bourgeois democratic system, say of Europe, the European parliaments tend to treat independent parties a little bit more kindly. I mean, it's still rampant with lobbying and corruption. I'm just saying that they tend to get treated a little more kindly, right? So they tend to get treated a little more kindly. So there's a little bit more leeway and opportunity for socialist parties in Europe to get their feet off the ground and get their foot through the door, but not within the United States. Within America, we have a highly insulated, exclusive two-party duopoly that actively discourages participation of third parties and actively hinders and gets in the fucking way. So let's talk about some of the mechanisms which exist to subvert the democratic process, all right? And then we're going to talk about some psyops. We were just talking about psyops a minute ago. Little do you know that Blue No Matter Who and the Democratic Party are not as well, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's just talk about the actual hard mechanisms which subvert the possibility of a socialist ever winning. So, the Electoral College. The Electoral College literally exists to subvert democracy. It makes it so that the swing states are ultimately the places that decide who the president is. And because the winner-take-all nature of our elections, you have the Electoral College. The colleges are the ones that vote. You win by getting more colleges than your opponents, all right? And the Electoral College will vote in the direction of whoever wins the most total tallied votes within a given district of a state. So it's a winner-take-all system, as in you could have 100,000 voters in a district. 49,999 vote in favor of the socialist candidate, 50,001 vote in favor of the capitalist candidate. The capitalist candidate gets that electoral college. See? So even though the socialist got 49,999 votes, he doesn't get the electoral college vote, which he needs in order to win the election. So when you extrapolate this and when you take a grand, broad picture of this, because there are some districts that have more voting power than others, there are some states that have more colleges than others. When you look at this in the aggregate, you could have a hypothetical situation where you have a socialist candidate that sweeps the election, as in he gets 75% of the popular vote. He secures 75% of the vote, but the capitalist candidate wins. Why? Because they got more electoral college votes, because there are electoral colleges and these strategically drawn up districts, these weird districts that they draw around various voting blocks in the country that basically bias the election in the favor of the more reactionary candidate, because they give the minority of the voting population a louder voice. They basically give the right-wing politician, they bias the election in favor of the right wing, you know? And what biases it in the direction of the right wing even more is when voter turnout gets driven down, as it often does. So when the voter turnout gets driven down, then though the reactionary voting candidate, like the reactionary bloc, though right-wingers do not make up the majority of the population, they vote consistently, so they make up a consistent plurality of the voting population. So when the Democrats put up a Hillary Clinton or a Joe Biden, they put up someone who's unprincipled, that doesn't stand for workers' rights, and this person runs in the election against someone who appears to stand for something, albeit that thing they stand for is fascism, then voter turnout gets driven down. No one wants to turn out. Population gets disenfranchised. And when the turnout gets driven down, that also biases the election field in the favor of reaction, because as it turns out, people aren't going to turn out and vote for politicians that don't support their interests. You know what I mean? So if it wasn't for voter ID laws, electoral college, and the low voter turnout, and the active voter suppression, and outright electoral fraud, mind you, there is electoral fraud that transpires as well. If it wasn't for these things, the Republicans would never win another race ever again. We would never have Republicans again if that were the case. But anyways, so these are just some of the examples of the ways in which our electoral system is designed to exclude and disenfranchise the popular will of the people, because the candidates are pre-selected and pre-chosen long before the election has even begun. Even the likes of Bernie Sanders, was only kept around as on a leash because he sheepdogged people into the Democratic Party. He had the function and effect of sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party, which is a right-wing, corporate, neoliberal sellout party that participate in the turning of the ratchet, the ratchet effect. Democrats keep the ratchet frozen in place, block movements of the left. Republicans get elected, continue to move the gear to the right, start ratcheting shit to the right. So, anyways, not only that, there are other mechanisms as well that subvert the popular will of the people. You see, the Founding Fathers designed meticulously a very strategic, intelligent democratic process. A democratic process which is basically designed to exclude and disenfranchise the popular majority. Property qualifications at the founding of this country barred 90% of the population from being able to participate in elections. Yes, we've extended the franchise to the property list. We've extended the franchise to black and brown people and women. But despite this fact, they have still found other ways to arbitrarily disenfranchise and discourage people from voting. And one of the ways that this is, and though this isn't like a hard law, is lobbying. Lobbying, you can buy time on the airways to advertise your candidate. You can have an opportunist who will pander to and say that he will do this, this, and that, but will actually do the other, None of these politicians are legally obligated to uphold the promises that they make on the campaign trail. So when Biden tells you that nothing will fundamentally change, he's being honest. So, but ultimately, there are other ways that third parties are excluded as well. There are exclusionary practices that take place. So, for example, third parties need like 10% of popular support, according to official polling, in order to appear on the general election debate stage. They need 10%. It was 5%, but then, the people who host the presidential elections were like moving the goalposts. They move the goalpost. They go from, oh, did we say 5%? I mean 10%, And that's what they'll do to continue to exclude the third party. They'll just move the goalpost again. Oh, you want to be on the presidential debate stage? Oh, did we say 10%? No, you actually need 15% of the popular vote. And same goes for federal funding. You need a specific amount of support in terms of voting blocks in order to receive federal funding and to be like legitimized as a party, which Bernie Sanders could have done. He absolutely could have legitimized the Green Party, but he instead didn't do that. And then we have the PSYOP, as I consider it. So let's talk briefly about the PSYOP. All right, this is the PSYOP. Dipshit Democratic partisans and progressives voting out of fear. That is the PSYOP. These people will never vote for a socialist candidate because the socialist candidate does not have the support to secure the popular vote, and they risk splitting the vote with allowing the reactionary candidate to win. All right? That's basically how the rationale or logic goes with these people. It's faulty logic. Socialist candidates can't win because they don't have enough support, and the reason why they don't have enough support is because socialist candidates can't win. See the circular logic here, the circular reasoning? So why don't you give them support? That way they can eventually go on to win. Oh, well, no, because then they can't win, because Orange Man bad. These people fear the Republicans that much more. They're more afraid of the Republicans than they are angry and willing to fight and actually put up their own candidates that represent their interests. The people are right now of the consciousness that they are so downtrodden, so beaten, and so driven by fear-based impulse that they aren't going to support politicians that actually support their interests, And it's kind of funny because, in a way, I actually kind of prefer it when the Republicans are in charge. And the reason for this is because when the Republicans are in charge, it's the devil you know. The Democrats are subversive. They trick and manipulate people. They peel away the liberals from the protests and the broader movement. You'll notice the liberals will turn out to protest against the Republicans. The liberals will turn out to fight for a left-wing cause when a Republican is in power. But if it's a Democrat in power, then the liberals will all go home, All of a sudden, the exact same crimes and atrocities that were transpiring under Trump's watch, but they're now transpiring under Biden's watch. Crickets. Oh, they're not concentration camps. They are now friendly detention centers, temporary holding centers for refugees. They use wonderful, fluffy euphemisms to describe the exact same thing that was going on under Donald Trump. But I'm getting sidetracked here. So let's say by some miracle a socialist wins the election. Socialist wins. Socialists we get the first American socialist president of the United States. Let's say this hypothetically happens, all right? So the socialists just got elected to the office of president. They are now president. Let's be even more generous. Let's say they now have a House and a Senate full of socialists. The House and the Senate now comprise 65% all socialists, all leftists, all lefties. The Republicans and Democrats are less relevant than ever before. But we got 2/3 of the House and Senate, they're socialists, and then we have a socialist president. Let's say, hypothetically, this happens. They may be in control of the White House, but they ain't in control of the means of production. They ain't in control of the military either. You know what all the business owners are going to do? Wall Street's going to clamp down. They're going to stop investing. They're going to take all their assets out of everything, and they're going to sit on their hoards. And they're going to hire like private armies to protect their hoards. They're going to threaten to move all their manufacturing overseas. They're going to threaten to shut down everything. They're going to do capital strike. They're going to do like FDR's recession. That's what happened during FDR's recession in the late 1930s. There was another recession. Like America had an economic boom, and then there was a recession because all the capitalists just didn't want to invest because they didn't want to take the risk. They didn't want to pay more taxes, and they thought FDR was making some socialism. So if they were reacting that hostile to Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was a basic bitch liberal social democrat, imagine if an actual socialist was in power. Hell, speaking of which, the business plot. There were plans to do a coup against Franklin D. Roosevelt. If a socialist, it could have happened to Franklin Roosevelt, and it did happen to Salvador Allende. There was a military coup. So I'll tell you what would happen. First socialist president, House and the Senate happens. They control the White House. They don't control the military. The general, the lieutenants, the marshals, the army, they come in along with the deep state. They come in and then they oust the president. They oust all of the socialists and they establish a temporary military junta until new reactionary candidates can fill their place with highly controlled, very likely rigged elections. That's what is going to happen. So it's not enough to possess control of all the politicians. We also need control of means of production of our own. We also need control of military of our own. You see what I'm saying? It's not enough to vote candidates in. You also have to have sections of the army that are willing to back their political bite. Because as a wise man once said, all political power flows through the barrel of a gun. It's not enough to have the politicians on your side. You also need to have the army on your side. Anyways, so let's watch this other, so not just Salvador Allende, Mossadegh, who got cooed, although luckily not enough to get killed. As I was saying, let's go ahead and go to David Pakman. Yes, David Pakman is an American liberal because of his class interest and because he has to keep eating his money pellets being chased by the Marxist and anarchist ghosts. Oh, I like that. Keep eating his money pellets being chased. Oh, yeah. Wasn't Thomas Sankara? No. Thomas Sankara was murdered by French intelligence. Fun fact, French intelligence has murdered approximately 75 independent African leaders in the last 50 years. So, anyways, sorry for running my mouth. Allow me to begin with the Pakman. Let us go with the David Pakman. I'm going to
hear from a few more people via Discord. davidpakman.com/Discord is the place. Let's go to Spencer from Wyoming. Spencer, you were on the air.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
It's an honor to talk to you. I'm glad you called on me. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I wanted to bring up a question. I'm originally from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I live in a community near Gettysburg. And we started a petition to rename all the streets named after Confederate generals to Union.
Okay.
And everyone in the community hated it, like all the older folks specifically. And eventually I said, if we could just get one street sign changed, I would call that a win. And I'm wondering what you think of, we have majority in the Senate, House, and White House.
Yep.
But should we be focusing on baby steps, or should we be focusing on, like in my example, should I have been happy with just one street change, or is it more important to really push what you believe in to be right?
Oh, man.
Okay, so fuck David Pakman here in a second. I just had a thought. It's easy for me to pose all these criticisms and talk about what is probably going to happen, and there's a lot of assumptions that can be made, all right? But it's easy to criticize things without offering a solution, and I'm about to turn off that light. 1 second. Into the darkness we go. So as I was saying, what is to be done then? if the political process is super bought off, if it's rigged from the bottom up to make sure the popular will of the people is excluded at every level of politics, if it's designed to subvert democracy and it's designed in a pay-to-play manner to where people with the most money can buy out all the political representation while the workers who don't have jack shit can't buy anything, if it's designed in such a way to where it's designed to exclude the popular will of the people, and if the army, it backs the bourgeoisie and the politicians, some might ask, what is to be done? What can we do? Because they've got laws out the wazoo criminalizing effective protesting. They've got laws out the wazoo criminalizing and the formation of unions. They basically have us by the balls. So, one might wonder, what is to be done? So, we will return to David Pakman here in a second, but what I will say is, and the reason why I brought this up is because baby steps versus big changes. There are reforms that should be struggled for and sought out in the short term. All right, I'm gonna write these down for you guys. So I'm gonna delete all this, and then I'm gonna share my screen. So, reforms, struggle for reforms. That's what we need to do. Right? Here are the reforms, revolutionary reforms. So, reformist, you're a reformist. Fellow traveler's a reformist. Oh, I'm going to go to the infrared brigades and tell them that he's a reformist. He's a liberal. Yeah, whatever. Fuck you. Shut up and listen. So, there are reforms that, if struggled for in the short term, will pave the way for revolutionary action in the long term. And Lenin even talked about this in State and Revolution. It was either the State and Revolution or the Renegade Kautsky. But democratic reform. What did the Bolshevik Revolution, what did the 1904 Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution, as well as the American Revolution, what did all these revolutions have in common? It was all preceded by a struggle for democratic reform of some kind, an expansion of democracy. That's something that many a revolution historically have in common. The struggle for democratic reform, the struggle to make the system more democratic. All right? So when the system's made more democratic, people are going to be more likely to participate and be involved in the political process because they now feel like their voice matters. They now feel like they're being listened to. And when that's the case, people are going to contribute. They're going to make contributions. They're going to be more likely to turn out. And, that's the reason why Bernie Sanders was bringing out record numbers of people to turn out to vote. It's the reason why he filled stadiums, because he was a representative that made people feel like their thoughts mattered, like that they actually represented their interests, So, what do I mean by the struggle for democratic reform? I mean ways to basically dismantle the undemocratic aspects of our political system. So, getting rid of the electoral college, or defanging. There's one. Defanging the electoral college. Let's see what else here. Implementation of ranked choice voting. And these are just a couple of ideas, by the way. Just a couple ideas of democratic reforms that could be struggled for. But what these would do is they would make it so that the elections, and laxing of voter ID laws, and open to these things right here. So these are just a couple of examples. Getting maybe not getting rid of the electoral college, that's saying a lot, but at the very least making it so that it doesn't dictate as much who gets elected, or ranked choice voting, so that, you know, this right here gives a lot of chance for independent candidates just to have a fighting chance. Or the laxing of voter ID laws, which discourage large sects of the population from being allowed to vote. Yeah, when I wrote down here, increased democratic accountability, what I mean by that is the ability for people to see in real time the votes being tallied up on their screen, you know. Make it all open and available to public. That way it can be monitored in real time to circumvent electoral fraud, because electoral fraud is used in literally every election. Why do you think Bernie Sanders lost? He didn't fucking lose, guys. He was cheated out of the election. That's really what happened, because there were massive discrepancies between the exit polling data and the actual vote counts that were being tallied on the ballot boxes in the regions that he was running in. They found that there were huge discrepancies, as much as 3 to 8%, like 5-8%, these colossal discrepancies between the results that were showing up tallied up on screen and the exit polls. Eventually they just stopped doing exit polls because of how fucking obvious it made it. So yeah, so that's just an example of what I'm talking about. A way to combat and track electoral fraud, the laxing of voter ID laws, ranked choice voting, getting rid or defanging the electoral college. All right. So these are examples of democratic reform, which would pave the way for socialist candidates to have a fighting chance. And with that being said, we should still vote for socialist candidates. You know, socialism is on the rise. Like socialist candidates are starting to get supported. Like, I know, like, we have revisionists like Chikama Sawant getting voted. We got like Chris Haley, who is, I mean, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. Who's all types of trouble. And then we have Gloria La Riva. Gloria La Riva, 2016. I want to show you guys. What she got. Gloria La Riva secured 85,000 votes in 2020. In 2016, she only secured like 40,000 votes. So, hold on a second. So in let me see. As of 2016, she raised 25K, access to stage. She received 74,000 votes in 2016, and in 2020, she received 85,000 votes. So if you'll notice, there is a trend. She is getting more and more votes over time. Well, never mind. My point is that the fact that we have tens of thousands of people voting for socialism is a good sign. That's in general a good sign, and that gives us a general idea of where the zeitgeist of the public is. I don't think we should burn the ballot box, but I think we should vote exclusively third party. And this brings me to the other task of this brings us to the other task that needs to be done. There needs to be an absolute severance from the Democratic Party and like non-governmental organizations and like mainstream political outlets in general. There needs to be a complete severance from it. The Democratic Party is there to sandbag us, co-opt and recuperate our efforts, and make sure that we're stuck in the mud and we don't get anything useful accomplished ever. That is the true purpose of the Democratic Party. And the left in general, the American left in general, needs to make a grand exodus from the Democratic Party. Followed by that, working class unity, a coalition of sorts. We need a coalition of not a single party, but a series of parties. It needs to be comprised of socialist orgs, socialist parties, trade unions, activist groups, charities, independent charities, this is the general idea. So what we're talking about, forget left unity. Fuck left unity. What we need is working class unity. So this is what I'm talking about. A coalition comprising the entirety of the working class. You know, it covers the whole working class. You know, there's room for, you know, leftists, the far left, nominal left, but not just the nominal and far left. I think there's also room to allow right-wingers within the fray, because we'll have to work with these people anyways, because what I'm talking about is tactical unity. Because the more people we ally with to achieve these short-term reforms right here, the more likely we can achieve it, which will pave the way for revolutionary action down the line. Speaking of reforms, I've talked about democratic reform. I've talked about political reform. So we got political reform. Let's talk about economic reform. All right. So what economic reforms will pave the way for socialism? Don't worry, I will be taking feedback from the audience momentarily. So, work week. So, check this out. Single payer healthcare. And I can think of some other stuff, but check this out. Economic reform, higher wages, shorter work week, single payer healthcare. Everyone loves single payer healthcare. In fact, there's never been more demand for a national healthcare plan than ever before. Like, national healthcare, single payer healthcare has never been more popular. Even Republicans are turning out in droves in support of a single payer healthcare plan. This is an easy one to advocate for. You know, people across the entirety of the political aisle, except like the most extreme of rightists, want healthcare. You know, even bourgeois economists and liberals are now starting to recognize and concede ground on the question of healthcare. And then here are the other two that we really need to start driving the point home on. These will help us in the long term as well. Higher wages, $25 minimum wage. You fucking heard me. $25 minimum wage. Fuck $15 an hour, man. You can hardly get by with like a $15 an hour wage in the here and the now. You can hardly get by off that. $15 an hour ain't shit, you know? We need a $20 or $25 minimum wage, because if you scaled and pinged it to productivity and inflation, that's about what our national minimum wage ought to be anyways. So yeah, shoot high, shoot for the stars. Higher wages, shorter work week. Establish a 30-hour work week. 30 hours should be the new overtime threshold. So if an employer is working you longer than 30 hours per week, you should be making time and a half. Right here, you should be making time and a half. What this will do is drive automation, advance productive forces, so they don't need to hire as many people. They don't need to keep people around as long, make work easier. Not only will this improve living standards, not only will this will allow people to have more free time, but by virtue of these two reforms alone, when people have free leisure time, when they aren't working and slaving away for 50 to 60 hours a week, they're going to have a lot more time to think about the world around them and engage in their hobbies and in their passions, and to participate in their hobbies and passions. And what this will do is put people in a position where they're actually able to think about the world around them and give them more time to care about politics, because now they don't have to spend as much time caring about survival. They have more time to care about their local communities and what's going on around them. People will transcend the survival or the profit motive and go on to actually fight for things they care about. And this will create a feedback loop which will pave into the democratic reform. You guys see where I'm going? Do you guys see the logic here? Do you guys see how giant my fucking brain is? Do you guys see the logic? I hope you all see the logic. So, and while we're on the subject of reform, I got something else for y'all to consider. But yeah, no, Bullshit Jobs. Bullshit Jobs is a great book because it talks all about how bullshit, non-productive, PMC, pencil pushing type work and corporate bureaucratic work and gig work has been spawned by the modern capitalist economy to keep people doing shit for the sake of doing shit. I complained about that on my last stream. How, rather than just sending me home and compensating me for my time, my job would rather pay me several hours to stand around and do nothing and do busy work when I'm not standing around doing nothing, Rather than sending me home, they would rather have me fucking go and restack trailers that have already been packed full of boxes. They're just gonna have me go and do it all over again because just for the fuck of it, you know what I mean? But it goes to show, like, we were already trending towards shorter work weeks, higher wages during the 30s, and that's when we got the Depression. Then we were trending in this direction again because of advancing productive forces. But rather than evolve, that is, pay people more, work them less, they forced everyone to work. They found new bullshit for people to do. They've been finding increasingly abstract ways to keep people just working, to keep people enslaved. That's all it's about, keeping people enslaved. And my number one piece of evidence that keeping people working is just a way for them to enslave and control us is the fact that during the 2020 COVID recession, when everybody went home and when you had tens of millions of people out of work that were filing for unemployment, when you had people that were collecting all this unemployment from their jobs, look what happened. Not even 2 months later, 2.5 months later, 30% of the population's out of work, and COVID is hitting. COVID's hitting pretty damn hard. All these people are out of work. They see an injustice on the internet. They see George Floyd get strangled to death in public. Look how quickly everyone almost immediately hopped on that. The ruling class was terrified. They were fucking terrified. Keeping people inside, indoors, working is a way that they can control us and suppress class consciousness and suppress people from getting involved in doing a socialism and making some socialism. It is about keeping the workers in line and keeping people controlled. So these are all the reforms that will feed into the feedback loop, which will pave the way for socialism. You see what I'm saying? So there was something else. God damn it, I lost it. I had another thing I wanted to state. Political reform, economic reform, working class unity. This is just basic stuff, But for now, let's talk small. We're going to talk small here for a minute. We're going to talk here in a minute what you can do individually to make a change for the better. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and read some comments. Yeah, so shortening the work week, increasing wages, and another thing. Oh, now I remember what it is. Decommodification. Check this out. We need to start getting shit out of the hands of the private sector. This goes with economic reform. See this? Oh, yeah. And check this out. Decommodification. We need to get healthcare, housing, education, internet, electricity, get these out of the public sector. You know how we have these housing crises and how all these non-inelastic goods are inflating in prices, so much so that people have to take on all this debt in order to keep up with the increasing costs of living and the increased expenses of living? Well, check this shit out, dude. We need to get these out of the hands of the private sector. Healthcare should be a public good that's distributed according to need. Same goes with housing, education, internet. Hell, man, you could distribute video games according to need. The socially necessary labor time needed to reproduce a video game is nearly zero. I mean, outside of the electrons and the storage space, I mean, yeah, so outside the storage space needed on your computer hard drive, the little electrons bouncing around and about inside your computer, which constitutes the data that is the video game, takes virtually no human labor time to reproduce. So software should be free. These should be taken out of the private sector. All of this should be commodified. We need campaigns to decommodify, well, the essentials first: housing, healthcare, education. These are the kinds of campaigns and programs that we need to fight for. Get them out of the hands of the private sector. Get them out of the hands of the market. Say that these are off limit, or at least relegate a section of our healthcare, housing, and education to the public sector. You know, that way there's a non-market means by which people can subsist. You know, getting off the capitalist hit. I'm talking about these are the like short to medium term goals that we should be struggling for. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying, people? Cinema and Joe Manchin are holding back progress in Congress. Hypothetically, if you were the president, how would you play hardball with them and get them to fall in line? Well, I would meet with assuming I have Central Intelligence and the FBI under my thumb, I would contact them and I would tell them to send some operatives to pay these people a visit when they're alone at home. And I'm sure if, you know, hypothetically these operatives were to pay them a visit, they could find a way to convince them in private, you know, consensually, to fall in line. But that's assuming I would even have that kind of power. Honestly, dude, if I were president, I would probably be killed within the first couple of weeks, unless I had a sizable enough chunk of the regime backing me to where that probably wouldn't happen. So, but the way you would do it is, I mean, there's also like the SOCDEM way, where you just primary them. You just primary. You run campaign ads against them. Say like, this person, that person, or yeah, Manchin is the reason why you don't have healthcare right now. Don't vote for them. Vote for this opposing candidate. So yeah, primarying them and running alternative candidates would be the logical way to do it. I'm just saying, in the perfect world where I had things my way, I would have intelligence deal with them. So, let's go ahead and take a step back. Hold on. Just the Facts isn't against socialism. He just doesn't like it how it is handled in some places. And 25 an hour will crash the economy. Not if you do it right. Not if you implement it at a proper pace and you will regularly skip. Like, you don't just go from 7.25 to 25. What you do is you start at like 12 and you increment it over the course of half a decade. So 12 and then 15, 20, 22, 25. So the way you increment it is by $2 to $3 a year. And what this does is this gives people more spending money in their pockets, which stimulates demand. You know, demand gets stimulated and people are out purchasing and consuming more goods. They aren't just spending all their money on rent. They actually have disposable income, which stimulates demand. They start producing more, which allows them to employ more people, to, more consumers. And then you steadily raise it again, and you steadily raise it again. You don't just go from 7 to 25. You increment it to where the economy has time to adjust. I mean, I don't doubt if you were to take minimum wage from 7 to 25 that it would cause some economic issues. That's if you raise it by too much too quickly. But if you increment it, then you're good. If I were rich enough to become a god, surely your loved ones would be also. What would happen if you were elected president? I'd be shot in. Yeah, exactly. No, if I were president of the United States, guys, I would either be dead within the first week or a military coup. I would be deposed in a military coup. That's what would happen. So, anyways, but so again, stressing what I got here, but I'm gonna read some more comments. The changes towards work weeks and wages are good, but it wouldn't be best if we encouraged worker democracy instead, so they can elect progress based on the capabilities of their place. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I am glad that you brought up that point, because this is midterm goals. Let's talk small time change, short term. All right, guys. Fuck. All right, let's see. Yeah, I'll just say this. So here's what I have to say. So, little things. Guys, just focus on short-term changes, all right? Short-term changes, things that you can do individually to affect material change for the better. So let's go ahead and talk about short-term changes we can do. So yeah, fuck the Democrats, join a socialist org. Now, I know that the DSA is basically an arm of the Democratic Party to some extent, but that's not 100% true. There are radical components within the DSA, and there is some degree of validity to entryism with respect to the Democratic Socialists of America. So let's say you live in a city and the DSA is the only show in town. They're the only ones organizing tenants unions, labor unions, or electing socialist candidates to city council. There's no reason not to work within them. You know what I mean? There's no reason not to try and work within them and contribute your talents and do work to try and affect material change, just to improve material conditions for workers. There's literally no reason not to. So, I include DSA in this list, and I also include PSL. Now, I don't have the best history with PSL. As I've said before, they're kind of a cult, and they have dangest brainworms, but otherwise, they're pretty good. They push protesting all the time. They do a lot of protesting, and they orchestrate a lot of protests, and they're very serious about educating their cadres, which is good. So though they have dangest brainworms, at least they read theory. Oh yeah, also don't join the CPUSA. Fuck CPUSA too. Fuck them too. And other socialist orgs. I was in the Party of Communists. I left because I couldn't attend their virtual meetings because I work in the afternoons, but I'm probably going to be rejoining soon. SALT, they're Trotskyites, but they're decent. Then you have the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. These are just some ideas, guys. I mean, no socialist org is perfect. No socialist org has the perfect line. They all have their own faults and shortcomings, but whatever socialist org is native to your area that is trying to win material gains for workers, join it, I mean, you'll be put in contact with other activists. You'll meet people that are, like-minded that you can work with towards a common goal. And if there aren't any socialist orgs in your area, then start a reading group instead. So, this is the next step. Let's say there isn't a socialist org in your area. Start one. Start it with a reading group. Invite your friends over and read theory on the weekends. Once you grow it to, say, I don't know, 5 to 10 members, once you've grown it sufficiently, go out and start talking about running your own city council. People talk about, community service. And that reminds me, this is another thing. See that? Volunteer for community service. Get involved with your community. Help people and contribute to the material gains of the most downtrodden. This will also put you in contact with activists and like-minded people. That's what I'm saying, Home Slice. Volunteer for community service, you know what I mean? Even if it's at a church, even if you're not religious, if you've got a church that's doing a soup kitchen, that does a soup kitchen, that gives food to poor and homeless people, that does like can drives, just join it, You'll meet people who care, and you'll be able to agitate amongst your fellow churchgoers, And to the extent that you can, organize your workplace. Now, right to fire is abundant all around and about. Like, let me tell you a little bit about right to fire. You guys know what right to fire is? Your employer has the right to fire you. At least in the states where right to work is a law. They can fire you for whatever reason they fucking want. They don't have to have a reason. But anyways, even in that case, you should still fight. Oh yeah, that also reminds me. For political reform, overturning right to work and other anti-labor, anti-democratic legislation in your local hometown and or state. There we go. So yeah, we'll get to the electoral part here in a second, but yeah, organize workplace into a labor community, Soviet, or trade union, worker union. Problem is that union movement is largely dead. There aren't a lot of unions left, but at the very least, if you're working at a place, then you can at least try to organize it into a council of some sorts. What I'm trying to do is organize a labor committee at my job where we file collective complaints towards HR, towards various trends, because labor conditions are pretty shit where I work, and there's a lot of people there that want to make a difference. Feel out where you work. If you work a dead end job like me, you'd be surprised like how many people would want to go out there and make a change for the better. So yeah, if you can organize a committee, talk to your workplaces, or let's say you're in school. See that? Let's say you're in school. Let's say you're a teenager listening to this. If you're a teenager or you're a college student, or if you work a dead end job. I'm going to send this notepad beat to my fucking Discord later. But so yeah, if you're in school, organize a reading groups. See if you can get some people interested in reading after school with you, make a little club. Just make a little club, and then you can grow it into a student union down the line. And then you can shut down your high school, and you can shut down the roads heading to and from your high school, protesting Israeli apartheid and genocide, do some really based shit like that, occupy some teacher rooms, make your voice heard. There's protesting and there's union organizing going on all over the place, guys. It's just the news isn't reporting on it. They're never going to report on it, and you're never going to hear about it. But there is labor struggling going on right now. It's in its infant stages, but it's the start of something. So, again, this is like the alternative. If there isn't one, join one. So, if there is a union, club, org already, see about joining it. There we go. So that's if you're in school, you're at work, etc. Just the change starts with you. So now this brings us to electoralism. Run candidates for town hall, mayor, town hall, mayor. See about getting socialists elected to the levers of power within your local area and municipalities. So yeah. In the local areas, municipalities. There you go. So yeah, giving socialists the levers of power. I mean, yeah, they can't build socialism, but they can at the very least, help basically help improve the economy in a local area by various ways. People always talk about general elections. What about local elections? People don't pay attention to their local town politics. So yeah, that's another thing. Pay attention to local town politics. So yeah, pay attention to your local politics. Who is in this judge or this mayor position? Who's making these choices? Because there are extremely reactionary assholes that routinely get elected to these positions. They're holding the levers of power, and they're pulling and twisting these levers in ways that are directly fucking you over and fucking over other working people in the area. And there ought to be a flashlight put on this, and people need to be made aware of who's in charge and what they're doing. And we should be trying to get people in charge locally who are out to make a difference. So here's some other small time stuff. I can think of a couple other things. Damn, I need more water. So what else do I got here? Here we go. So read lots and lots of theory. I'm serious. In your spare time, you should be reading. You should be reading for at least a solid hour a week, or like a solid 10 to 15 minutes per day. And I'm not just talking news articles. I mean, like, you want to work yourself up to the point to where you're reading for a half hour to an hour a day. All right? You're reading every single day. You're always studying. You're always absorbing knowledge. You're always digesting information. You want to get yourself to that point. I mean, start small. Yeah, start small. Work up to 30 to 60 minutes. There you go. See, read lots and lots of theory, work your way up to it. I know that we live in the ADD generation, so it's hard to sit down and read books for extended periods of time. But, you want to start yourself off small and you build up to it. You build the mental stamina, Always self-improve. But last little tip, because I can't think of anything else right now. Be the change that you want to see in the world. Socialism is about people taking their power back and putting destiny into their own hands. So yeah, actually, I have thought of a couple other things. Pick up some cultural... Yeah, pick up some cultural endeavors. Learn hobbies. Don't make the only aspect of your personality socialism. Weave your skills and talents. Learn some skills. Yes. Learn skills. Doctors, programmers, engineers, and skyscraping. Yeah, like skyscraper window wipers. You know what I'm talking about? The people that are hanging off skyscrapers and wiping down windows. We need these people. And we need these types of workers. They will be important within the context of a new socialism. Oh, and I just had an idea. If feasible, establish a collaborative, common, establish a collaborative common, and communal So here's what I'm talking about with this. Let's say establish a cooperative, a common communal resource tool. So let's say that you live in a suburb. Plant a refrigerator by the side of your house, and everybody donates some of their food to it. That way, free, decommodified food is available to everyone in the community. So locally we need to establish non-market means of support and subsistence in our immediate communities. Immediate communities, suburbs, apartments, etc. Oh yeah, that reminds me. If you're in an apartment, if you live in an apartment, organize a tenants union. If you live in an apartment, organize a tenants union, or better yet, a homeowners union, or if suburb, homeowners union. That's what I'm saying, man. It's all about building that solidarity. It's about providing a material basis for non-market, non-capitalist relations. It's not enough to just just self-improve and to be involved in politics. You also have to create non-market means of subsistence, because when people find ways to subsist that are not dependent on the market, then it will reproduce and create a material basis for socialist economic relations. You know what I'm saying? This is all about building infrastructure. So when I talk about small time change, when I talk about these things that I've listed, which I'm gonna post in the Discord later, but I am referring to immediate change that you can do to build towards these long-term goals. And then we have the long-term goal. Revolution. Right here. The long-term goals, revolution. I haven't thought that far in the future yet, so we'll just say revolution. I don't want to go too far into this subject because I don't really want to talk about overthrowing the government that much on my channel. I do not advocate for insurrectionary politics or violent or political violence of any kind on the Fellow Traveler YouTube channel. So, anyways, let's go ahead and talk about one last thing. Actually, fuck it. Let's go to long term. Seizing means of production. So, within the context of the United States, there really isn't a lot of means of production to seize. I mean, what are we going to do? Take control of Walmart? Seize the means of gas station? The point is that because all of our manufacturing is outsourced, because everything is as spread out as it is, like you have to drive so far to get anywhere in this country, you need a car. And not only that, but like a lot of our shit is too spread out and a lot of our manufacturing is outsourced. So yeah, people could seize control of suburbs. So you could turn suburbs into communes. You could communize suburbs, you know. Actually, I'm gonna list that down there as long. Communization of suburbs. All right, Coolerino, Duderino. So where were we? Oh yes. I want to talk about internationalism real quick. Creating a global, anti-colonial, anti-imperialist bloc. There we go. Between countries, contacting politicians, activists, and revolutionaries in the third world. Oh, in the second and third world. Oh yeah. So it's not enough for us to work within America alone. We need to work across the world. So we need to get in contact with people in Latin America from, say, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Bolivia. Just some examples. And, I consider these 4 countries named principal anti-colonial, anti-imperialist countries. Countries that are either socialist or semi-socialist or social democratic with semi-socialist leadership. You get the idea. Of these 4, the only one I consider a genuine dictatorship of the proletariat is Cuba. I know Nicaragua had a socialist revolution, but I don't know enough about Nicaragua to voice an opinion on it. So enough about that. So are you guys liking this? Like, comment if you guys are liking this. Let's see. That means you wouldn't be born if there was none, because there would be no America in New World country. What are you talking about? People of the stream called politics are for socialism. Politics too? Okay. Base Tornado. Capitalism is a problem for the living, not for those that don't exist. Reindustrialization and reskilling ought to be socialist. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Tovarish. I will... Oh, man. You guys are giving me some good ideas. I'm going to list this right here. So, long-term goal. Here we go. Another reform. Long-term reform. Internationalism. And I'm going to put this under the small time stuff, but under, let's see, learn some skills. Learn languages. Learn some languages. There we go. A campaign program of reskilling workers and push for Actually, yeah. This goes more under long term. Reskilling workers and reindustrialization. Yeah, there we go. That is, I 100% agree. That is absolutely major goals. Like, that should actually be within the broader coalition or the broader program. I'm 100% with you there. Derailed. Let's see. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I know this was supposed to be about David Pakman, but I feel like we got something much, much better than a criticism of David Pakman. To be honest, I feel like we got something a lot better than merely criticizing a liberal, as fun as it is. This stream, I might retitle this stream actually, because this actually turned into, I think, a really productive stream. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Has this been a productive stream? Because all I've done for like the last half hour or so is talk about how to make change for the better. So yeah, because I see people are on their way out the door. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up and just briefly summarize what I wrote here. So, long-term goals: revolution, seize means of production, skilling workers, industrialization, build socialism. So, long-term, political reform, and then I list the political reforms that will pave the way for revolution. Getting rid of or defanging the Electoral College, weakening the influence of the Electoral College on our elections, the implementation of ranked choice voting, laxing of voter ID laws, open ballot box counting, increased electoral reform, the overturning of right to work and other anti-labor, anti-democratic legislation. Ooh, I just thought of one. Ballot initiatives, direct voting on issues. That's another thing. Direct democracy. That's another reform. Direct democracy. That's a big one. Economic reform. Higher wages. Shorter work week. Single pair. So yeah, higher wages, shorter work week. This will give people more time to think to become socialists. And under economic reform, I have decommodification. The great exodus from the Democratic Party, working class solidarity, working class unity, the formation of a coalition of sorts needs to be comprised of socialists, trade unions, activist groups, independent charities, small businesses, mutual aid groups, independent political orgs, etc. Internationalism, reaching out to the second and third world, creating a global anti-imperialist, anti-colonial bloc between countries, contacting politicians, activists, and revolutionaries in the second and third world. And then I shall finish with the small time stuff. This is stuff that you can do to influence your community locally. All right? So yeah, fuck the Democrats, fuck democratic partisanship, and fuck all that noise. All right? Join a socialist org that is affecting change materially near you. And if there isn't a socialist org in your area, then start a reading group and form a socialist org eventually. Volunteer for community service, mutual aid, etc. If you work a dead-end job, organize a workplace into a labor community of some sort. If you're in school, organize a reading group. And if you live in an apartment, join a tenants union. And if there is already a union, like I'm saying do these things. If there's nothing already established, try to do them. But if there is something established and, it isn't compromised, it isn't like, say, a compromised, even if it's like a bourgeois union, like a reactionary union, you should still join it and participate in it. I'm going to add this. IWW, because there is value in having an IWW membership. All right, so pay attention to local politics, read plenty of theory, pick up some cultural endeavors, learn hobbies, learn some skills. They'll come in handy. Learn some languages. I'll just merge these two together. If feasible, establish a cooperative, communal resource pool of some kind. So free decommodified food is an example, or here are some other examples. Community garden, collective farms. These are things you can do in your backyard. Like with your next door neighbors, you could form a collective farm, communal tool sheds, communal Wi-Fi. And then what are some other good communal things? Communal Wi-Fi, little clinics. Like a communal clinic. Yeah, these are just examples. Necessary life-supporting goods that that allow for the material basis of communal economic relations, because we need to influence the economic base as well as infrastructure in our local areas and municipalities. That's the general idea behind that. Establishing non-market means of support and subsistence, and be the change. Eventual communization of the suburbs, because suburbs could be retooled and repurposed into something beautiful if we put our mind to it. But that's the biggest thing. Being the change you want to see in the world. Oh boy, I haven't been sharing my screen at all, have I? I'm going to share my screen. My nose itches. But anyways, see that shit? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this text, and I'm going to go to the Discord. And I'm going to ping everyone in the Discord. That sound good, guys? I think that sounds good. Let me go ahead and do a little copy pasta. Actually, I'm going to save this notepad document to the desktop. Call it, we'll call it What Is To Be Done. And in this little notepad, I have a list of ideas for you guys on what is to be done. So there we go. Here's our notepad. So I'm going to go ahead and post it in announcements. So it's in my Discord now. I'm going to I mean, I've got the link of my Discord in multiple videos. You guys can just follow that and, I'll verify you. But, yeah, there we go. What is to be done? Yeah, so there was one other stream I wanted to do tonight. I'll let you guys know if I do stream again, but I'm about to kill it. But before I do, what else should be nationalized besides healthcare? Besides that, the utilities companies and the means of communication. We should nationalize and socialize the internet. This includes big tech companies like Google and Amazon, as well as YouTube. Like, this is something, ironically enough, right-wingers are instinctually gravitating towards, but they are now starting to see the disadvantages of the private system. They see the disadvantages and drawbacks of the private system, so they're, ironically enough, coming to a conclusion that's basically socialism. They just don't want to call it that because they're spooked. So, let me see what I got here. Because someone's been waiting on me. I'm going to probably depart here momentarily, depending on what my feedback is. Sorry, guys. All right. So depending on a million and one factors. Am I coming straight from work? And actually, I'll wait on that. Sorry, guys. All right. So besides utilities and besides the means of communication, what we need is mass public transit. That's what I forgot to include. Fuck, I forgot to include. I'm going to include that in the notepad. I'm going to make an updated document. So yeah, nationalization of industry. So I'm going to go ahead and include that somewhere in here. Nationalization and socialization of all major industry, utilities, companies, and transportation. Oh yeah, and I will also include the introduction of economic planning. Yeah, there we go. The introduction of economic planning, and we'll call it, I can't remember what I was going to call it. That works. Economic planning. Yeah, let's do it. Let's start doing some central planning. That is something that absolutely must be done. I'm going to include another reform as well. This just came to mind. Tax the rich. Bleed them dry. Or not just that, I'll do you one better. Establish a maximum wage. That's it. So, like I said, these are all reforms that I'm talking about. Work towards check this out. So, a maximum wage, I like this idea. You make the maximum wage 20-1 at first, and then you shrink it through reforms from 20-1 to 10-1, and then from 10-1 to 5-1. So now the CEOs and shareholders will only be making 10-1, 5-1 if it's a smaller company, but we'll say 5-1 if it's a big company, 10-1 if it's a smaller company. So by doing that, you make it so the proprietors of the company have it in their direct material interest to increase the wages of the employees as well, because by increasing the wages of the employees, that allows them to increase their own wages as well. So I kind of like the idea of a maximum wage. Like I said, these are all reforms. I know this is all reformist sounding, but really it's reforms paving the way for eventual revolution. And what this is kind of a state capitalist stepping stone, using state capitalism as a stepping stone, more or less, onto full-on socialism eventually. Yeah, it's no big deal. No, not at all. I do not believe in population control. I actually think that population control has some very fash racist implications to it when you consider the birth rates among black and browns are significantly higher than whites. However, you industrialize, modernize, uplift the more deprived sects of the working class population, give people an education and everything that they need. An educated population needs no controlling. The world population is going to cap out at around 11 billion, 12 billion. The problem isn't the number of people, it's the way that our resources are managed and distributed. And that 1% of the world's population uses 50% of its resources. So that's the problem right there. So I'm going to delete this article, or delete this note, and I'm going to reapply it. But first I'm going to include some other things. Yeah. So nationalization of industry, introduction of economic planning, state capitalism, banks. So here's what I'm going to do. So state capitalism, and where is it? Tax the rich, nationalization, and then introduction of economic planning, state capitalism, Green New Deal on steroids. Actually, no. We'll call it Green Stalinism. There we go. There you go, guys. We'll finish with that. We now have our Green Stalinism. I am an advocate of Green Stalinism. Overhaul, aka the rapid overhauling of our energy infrastructure to carbon neutral renewables. But we're thinking a little too long term. Well, maybe not. Well, I think that's all I'm going to write for now. You guys can contribute to the doc, and anything you guys want to contribute to this doc, you can just post, and then we can have an updated version of it. Let's make it open source. That sound good? We're going to drop this right here. It's going to be in the general chat of the Discord, and if you guys want to update it or contribute to it at all and work on it, it's up to you. So, where are we? Yes, green Stalinism, Fusion City. The internet's you to be public before being, it used to be public before being privatized. Huh. I didn't know that. The more you know. Fusion City now. Kill yourself, change your name, bro. Why? Yeah, no, that's not a cool name. Fusion City. Fusion's a way off. And nuclear fission, while being viable, we only have enough uranium at our current rate of nuclear consumption for like the next 80 years. We have about 80 years before we run out of uranium at the rate that we're using it at, which is the reason why we need thorium reactors. So thorium, do we have more thorium or uranium? How much thorium is on Earth? How much uranium is on Earth? Because we're going to need to switch to thorium anyways. So there's around 40 trillion tons of uranium, and we have, how much thorium do we have? 7.2 parts per million. That doesn't answer my question. So we have 2.7 billion metric tons of thorium, enough to last us 40,000 years in our extreme scenario. There's 3 billion short tons versus uranium at 40 trillion tons. So hypothetically, this report says that we have enough thorium to last us 40,000 years. So in terms of renewables, I think that we shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves. In our economic planning should include the predicting of future scientific breakthroughs. So we should plan that by the end of a 10 or 20 year period, we will have achieved XYZ scientific breakthroughs. So not only planning to use technology we have today that's available today, but planning to integrate future technology. And this is going to be very difficult because this depends on us, taking a long-term risk that we might not make the discoveries in time, and we need to have a backup plan for that. So we do need to plan for when we discover a stable fusion reaction, but in the time being, the energy, the renewables that we should be using should be a combination of solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, and nuclear fission. These forms of renewables should be introduced in the regions of the world where it's most applicable and pragmatic. So, you know, in the desert, you could, in the middle of the equator, like let's say you're center of the equator, you're in Mexico, New Mexico, you're in Texas. You can put your solar farms there. Let's say you're in a windy state like Illinois. You can have your wind farms. I've driven up to Chicago a few different times, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to Chicago, but like right outside Chicago, you've got those colossal wind farms. They've got just fields, endless fields of wind. That's what I'm talking about. Where it's ultra windy, you have those. Where it's ultra sunny, you have the panels, and where you've got strong currents, you can put hydroelectric dams, you can capture currents. You don't want to rely too much on any one thing because each one of these things does have an environmental impact. Capturing too much wind will cause the natural wind that flows around the earth to run still. That has an environmental impact. When you take energy from the ocean currents and from the river currents, that stops the water and stops it from flowing. You also have solar is actually your best bet. The problem is like the degradation of the panels. You need a carbon neutral way to reproduce and recycle the panels of these solar cells. But yeah, geothermal is another one of our best bets. I've seen estimations like from when I watched Zeitgeist Addendum a while ago. I've seen estimations that solar, or not solar, but geothermal lasts long enough we have enough geothermal to fuel our current energy usage and consumption for the next, I think, 12,000 years. That's a rough estimation from Zeitgeist Addendum. Do not quote me on that because that could not be true. But we have a lot of geothermal. You know, we could harvest the thermal energy from the earth, replace all our coal plants with that, set up thorium and fission reactors. And when it comes to all of these things, we need to have long-term planning integrated when we plan for when we run out of, resources. Like, when are we going to run out of thorium? When are we going to run out of uranium? When are we going to run out of XYZ material that we need in order to make current civilization possible? These are the kinds of long-term decisions that need to be made now that we are coming closer to a type 1 civilization. So, I think it's called the Great Barrier. The Great Barrier. I think it's called the Great Barrier or the Great Filter. The Great Filter. Fermi's Paradox. Fermi's Paradox. So anyways, Fermi's Paradox is a hypothesis as to why there's a general lack of clear, obvious extraterrestrial life. So why isn't there more extraterrestrial life? Well, because as he put it, if life is so easy, someone from somewhere must have come calling by now. So the hypothesis is basically an explanation for why there are no aliens, and it's that there is a barrier. There is a barrier at the point of the developments of an advanced civilization to where they either blow themselves up and go extinct, or they pass the filter, they pass the barrier, and they go on to become an advanced, faster than light spacefaring species. And as it turns out, the reason why we haven't contacted any aliens yet, I mean, aside from the fact that outer space is that big, it's also because there have probably been many instances where advanced civilizations get to the point to where they're powerful enough to destroy themselves. Like, humanity is almost powerful enough to wipe itself out at this point. Like, we could almost drive ourselves to extinction. Personally, I think Fermi's paradox is capitalism. I'm not going to lie, I really do. I think Fermi's paradox is the capitalist stage of development. And my thesis for this is the fact that during the Cold War, the United States military was willing to drive the planet into a nuclear holocaust if it meant stopping the spread of communism. We had generals and we had capitalists. We had people that were willing to, if it came down to it, if they were to go down, they would take the whole planet with them. So we have narcissistic, small, petty, vindictive, selfish, greedy assholes that would rather have this world in pieces than this world under global communism. So that's why I believe that Fermi's paradox is actually the capitalist stage of development. It's when we have a huge industrial technological boom, our technology far surpasses our maturity and our conscious awareness as a species, and it's a race between can we become conscious and aware of what we have before we destroy ourselves. So I agree so far as it's feasible, but the way most socialists conceive of this post-scarcity communism is inconsistent with natural facts. Ecological overshoot will not follow for endless growth and maintaining this level of consumerism. Yeah, I'm with you. So what we need to do is transition to what is called a steady state economy. All right. A steady state economy is an economy of zero where there is zero economic growth. All right. Let me get Microsoft Paint and illustrate my thoughts. We're going to expand you. We're going to open you. And we're going to do a little paint streaming. All right. So this line right here is 50,000 years. So what you're seeing right now is, oh, damn, that is way too big. There we go. So right here is 50,000 years ago. And then over here is 10K. And then we have 2KY. And then we'll call this 200Y, 100. Just give you guys an idea. Stretch that out a bit. See, I'm talking about ideas right now. So there's 100 years. I know it's a little inconsistent on the spacing. Cry harder about it. And then you have presence and peak. So what I'm going to be drawing is global GDP. All right. Let this little green line represent global GDP. So let me make you bigger. So this is GDP. It's nowhere, right? It's like right here. And guess what happens? Agricultural revolution occurs. All right. And then we have advancing civilization. By the way, there are a few dips. Just a heads up. I am going to draw a couple dips because we do destroy ourselves a couple times. We'll call this dip the Black Plague, and we'll call that dip when Genghis Khan roams the earth. So 200 years ago, Industrial Revolution. Ooh. Right? And what we have here is our productive capacity soars. And now we are entering a stage where that growth is slowing down. So what we have is something resembling an S-curve. One way or another, we're going to reach the limits of growth on a finite planet, and we're going to end up in a type of new capitalist paradigm when there is zero economic growth. And from there on out, we have a system of rentier vampire capitalism, as the justification for the system is no longer present. Capitalism as a progressive force, it's contingent on capitalism facilitating growth. But if our system no longer facilitates growth and it's not growing anymore, you just have capital recycling, and you just have a rentier vampire capitalism type system where people just pay rents and the capitalists just extract rents. And we basically enter an age similar to that of feudalism. And we're probably going to endure that for a while, along with environmental catastrophe. One way or another, I think socialism will emerge. I'm optimistic. But yeah, we are going to reach the limits of growth on a finite planet. And it is at that point where we need to focus on efficiency. And that's why I deem this what my ideal model is. I've said this before. My ideal model is what I call a steady state cybernetic socialist planned economy. Yep, that's pretty much what I want. Steady state cybernetic socialist planned economy. Steady state as in the resources and goods that are harvested are recycled, and as we try to balance human need and human desire with sustainability on our earthly habitat, we're balancing the two now. Cybernetic in the sense that we use cybernetics, computers, and IT to do the computation and hard planning. Socialists, and yeah, so socialist in the sense that, means production are all public property. So yeah, that's what I'm in favor of. Best way I can describe it. Good shit, huh? Isn't it great how this stream started off talking about David Pakman, then we just evolved into much more interesting ideas? So you just have capital eating itself alive. So Malthusian take, capitalism will collapse underneath a socialist wave led by China. I wish I shared your optimism. We have the resources today to solve the problems. Depopulation, reducing energy, and anti-consumerism is moving backwards. Okay, so I'm not against post-scarcity, but this is just a very bizarre contradiction, all right? Why can't we meet human need and provide everyone with relative abundance? Like, what is the problem with trying to provide everyone on Earth with relative abundance and relative plenty, while trying to do so in the most efficient way imaginable? Because right now, capitalism, in pursuit of profits in pursuit of profits, it's still driven by the law of value. So goods are not produced to last as long as possible. We've had to introduce planned obsolescence planned obsolescence into all of our production. None of our shit is like designed to last. Like, we toss out our smartphones every 2 years. We change our cars every 5 to 6. We buy a new television set every year. Our clothes get holes in them, and then we have to go out and buy new clothes. The textile industry is wreaking havoc on our environment. Nobody is saying that you reduce the rates of consumption. The argument is that we have to make it so that what we have is designed to last. We fulfill the use values and we fulfill the needs using the least amount of resources possible. So I'm sorry to say, yes, consumption will have to be curtailed. It will, to some extent. Consumerism will have to be rationed. And what will need to be done is we need to rethink wealth. We need to rethink growth. You know what I mean? Like, what it means to grow, what it means to generate wealth, Because after a certain point, you can only get so much quantity. After a certain point, we have to prioritize quality. You know what I'm saying? Quality. We have our quantity, but then we have our quality as well. Studying socialism with Chinese characteristics, understanding the China question is the most important question for socialists today. So, Caleb Moppin, is that you? It sounds like Caleb. It sounds like a Moppinite. This is a very, very Moppinistic take, but that's fine. I'm going to comment on China real quick, and then I think I'm going to go because I've been at it for about 2 hours now. But so on China, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like I've said in a community post, I am not a Dengist, But with the amount of anti-China hysteria, yellow man bad hysteria, and the amount of so-called, well, pseudo-leftists going out preaching fucking State Department talking points, slandering China. I mean, with all this anti-China resistance and American exceptionalism and imperialism, I am no dangist, but listening to all that shit makes me feel like I should be one. But I'm not. But I feel like I should be one sometimes just because of the sheer volume of anti-China hysteria, just to sort of, stem the tide, if you know what I mean. But in regards to China, I have become more optimistic on China in recent months. I do think China could do the switch. I do think it's possible for China to achieve socialism. The issue is China is the most. It's weird because China, out of all the countries, is the most equipped one of them all to build socialism, just because they have the political infrastructure in place and the will, and sort of the will to do it. So yeah, they could do it. The transition would be at its most smooth if it were China on one hand. But on the other hand, would they be willing to generate that kind of aggression and antagonism? Because for China to transition to a truly socialist economy, we're talking about expropriation. We're talking about the liquidation of capitalists as a class. We would be talking about the state and the military cracking down hardcore on the forces of reaction and counter-revolution that do exist to some extent in China. Like, you don't maintain a system of generalized commodity production for 50 years and not have reactionaries and right-wingers rear their head out from the woodworks. So there would be a level of civil unrest and conflict rivaling that of a civil war, basically. And not only that, but they would also get encircled. Like, I mean, China already has to deal with some degree of encirclements, but well, maybe I don't think encirclements will be as that big of an issue in the future for China, because they're building soft power and soft alliances with enough countries, and they're securing enough hegemonic dominance to where, like, encirclement from the United States is not that viable, but it's actually impossible because of how much of our manufacturing comes from China, So unfortunately, America is suckling on the teat of cheap Chinese sweatshop labor. So could China do the switch? I am still of the position that I have to see it to believe it, but I do believe that it is not only possible, but within the context of world revolution, China would... I'm just saying, if within the next few decades, there's an upsurgence in socialist countries and revolutions, and we see another wave or emergence of socialism from, say, India or in Africa, I think if there was a reemergence of actual socialism and we saw the reemergence of socialist planned economies, that China would make the switch. I think they would. Either that, or they would, ironically enough, become the last bastion of capitalist hegemony themselves. But like I said, I'm more optimistic on China nowadays. I think it's possible. Jackson Hinkle replaced the word communist with American patriot in his Twitter bio. All right, you know what? Why not? Why don't we do a little twittering before we... Actually, wait. Let me write. I have to write to somebody. I know what I'm going to do. I apologize, guys. I have to write to someone. There we go. All right. So I have a little bit more time to stream. So why don't we go to Twitter, guys? Let's do a little twittering. Do a little twittering, guys. You want to do a little twittering? China is already beginning to trade in its own denominated currency. It's a process to throw off US dollar hegemony with some countries. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good that they are undermining US hegemony and creating a counter hegemony of some kind. I mean, like I said, I've become a little bit more optimistic on China, but I'm still very agnostic on the topic of the CPC. Um, but at the very least, they have a communist party numbering in the tens of millions. At the very least, there's some kind of communist presence on the world stage, even if, you know, it's not the best. It could be better, but whatever. Jackson Hinkle, sure. Danky Kang has been waging all sorts of drama wars. You know what I mean? He's been. Oh, here we go. Didn't this guy used to have communist in his bio? American patriot. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. As Jackson grows larger, he is going to compromise on his initial values so that he can sell out to a more liberal audience. This is the general trend with bigger YouTube channels. You either stagnate or you do minimal growth, or you. What ends up happening is with a lot of these channels, there's two paths that you can take as a YouTuber. You can sell out to liberalism to achieve faster growths, and then just LARP as a leftist when you're really just like a rad lib or like just a revisionist rightist deviation, which this is definitely an indicator of. Or you can stay the course, maintain your message, never compromise, and keep preaching the same word. And when the people are ready to hear your message, they'll come to you. That's the path I'm trying to take. I just want to maintain an objectively true message, even if I don't ever grow as quickly. My channel will grow one way or another, and I am gonna surge and get tens of thousands of subs eventually. Yeah, what's going on? All right, cool. Let's scroll down a bit. Did you know? Not you. Actually, I think it's off Jason's Twitter. We are city building. I'm bodybuilding. While Caleb Moppin is over here city building, he is bodybuilding. Or I'm bodybuilding. Vaccine mandates for workers met with mass protests in Australia. I don't understand what the whole fucking ordeal is with the vaccine mandates. Can you guys give me a comments what you think? I think it's kind of silly that people are refusing to get the vaccine or they're protesting against getting vaccinated. Like, what information can you present to me, like the information or data that verifies that the vaccine doesn't work or it has some substantial drawbacks? Like, this is fucking ridiculous, dude. Anyways, Trump on our former ally Netanyahu. Yeah, fuck him. Except for the part where Trump fucking may as well have been rimming his asshole because he gave Israel whatever the fuck they wanted. So that doesn't mean anything. Moppin. Man. Yeah, I think Jason's the one who retweeted it, but it was a clip. It was a Vosh clip. Sure, I'll treat you guys with a Vosh clip before I go. You want a Vosh clip? I can't find it. Fuck it. Oh, here it is. Little Vosh clip.
Countries have threatened to in the past following severe sanctions. Or you pull the old CIA, real sneaky, real quiet. The other option is a coup. Morally, if it was possible, if I could snap my fingers, would I coup Russia? I mean, would I, let's say the CIA just sneak on in there and replace them with a pro-Western, whatever. I mean, I don't want them to be like pro-Western business. Let's just say somebody who's not Putin. Somebody who's not desperately trying to claw their way back to Cold War era glory. Yeah, I would. I would do that in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Wow. So this is our anti-interventionist. This is our anti-imperialist. I mean, I do want to make a larger stream or a larger video talking about Vosh, because he has said a few yikesy things recently that I would like to address. I know what I'll do. I'll name the stream "How to Spot an Imperialist." How to Spot an Imperialist. That's what we'll call it. Featuring Vosh. Does that sound good, guys? You guys want me to? Because it's been a while since I've covered Vosh. You guys want me to do a Vosh stream? That sound like a good idea? I can't believe I ever got brainwashed by him. He's been saying yikesy things for. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's sort of like part of his business model. He'll say yikesy, spicy takes to rile up his base and to get attention from people, piss people off because it gets eyes on him, and it gets people paying attention to his content. Because by saying inflammatory statements, slandering activists, and saying the things that he does, he simultaneously pulls in a liberal audience, gets eyes on him, gets people talking about him. Like, it's really actually pretty ingenious what he does. Like, honestly, I gotta give credit where credit's due. I don't think I've ever. He's got like this great model where he'll say something really controversial and then contradict himself like the following week, or like when he gets called out for saying something really inflammatory or just straight up neocon American exceptionalist, he'll just backpedal, or he'll contradict himself, or he'll say he's been taken out of context. What if Jackson has not abandoned his principles and he's just being tactical? I mean, that's possible, but I don't think you should shy away from what you are. If you're a communist, you should wear it, and you should let people know, because trying to hide and be subversive and deceptive in our intentions, beliefs, and ideas is what fascists do in order to subvert, trick, and manipulate people into becoming fascists, because their ideas are so incorrect and their ideas are so bad faith that the only way that they can get people to believe as they do is if they trick and manipulate them into believing into it, or they'd have to trick and manipulate themselves, which is why fascists generally say and espouse contradictory bullshit all the time, lie to themselves and lie to everybody else. They do it constantly. We as communists should not be trying to do that. We shouldn't be trying to subvert or manipulate people. We win by telling the truth. That is my position, and we should stick to our guns. People will eventually wake up, and they'll eventually realize that we're correct, and they're going to come to our side anyways. So, anyways. Bad tactics, Grasshopper. He pushes a war on China. I don't know why people bother with him. He's a rad-lib imperialist. Yeah, so I think I know what I'll name the stream. We'll call it How to Spot an Imperialist, featuring Bosch. I'm going to make that stream after this, actually. So, when he said socialism is an extension of liberalism, no, not quite. Try again. To him, I mean, anyways. Of course he's wrong. There is no dictatorship of the proletariat in China. Centralization of productive forces necessitates global trade. Why the left should care about men, by Jacobin. Good video. The most dangerous thing that's going on is the muddying of socialism and communism and injecting right-wing talking points into it. That's what Vosh and others do. I am 100% aware of what he does. Vosh poisons the discourse to no other degree. I have thought about emailing him and trying to sneak back on and debate him again. But I would have to be so careful about how I did it. It would be about a mother of all balancing acts, But I do eventually want to do it again sometime soon. So, but for now, I'm just gonna create a stream and talk about his imperialist takes. Last question: what if socialists co-opt mainstream society? Co-opting mainstream society. I mean, I think what you're talking about is just providing a counter hegemony, like just providing socialist alternatives to bourgeois culture and so on. And part of doing that would involve creating the material basis for socialist ideas. Hence why I was talking about getting involved in activism and setting up like communal tool sheds, communal garden, communal, just getting non-market means of subsistence into the hands of people. Nah, man, fascists don't lie to themselves. They just all engage in self-ignorance. I mean, isn't that basically the same thing as lying to yourself, though? He meant the Enlightenment principles. I had my eyes on him, and he's been consistent on... yeah, I know. But the problem with me isn't the fact that that is what he actually meant and he just misspoke. My issue is that he doubles down and acts like that was his position the entire time, rather than just being like, oh, okay, I misspoke. Marxism is an extension of liberalism. It's meant to go beyond it and succeed where liberalism has failed. That's not what he says. He acts like that was his whole position the whole time. That's my real issue with it. Voss just... he will... all times, all places claim infallibility. That's basically it. Never apologize for anything he's ever done wrong. Never admit when he's been proven wrong. It's a very similar rhyme and dance to infrared. And when you have someone who sells themselves on being infallible at all times, funnily enough, that attracts a very cult-like following. It's been great to see all the differing viewpoints. Let's remember the main goal and give meaningful critique without alienating. Help out, exactly. Do you believe Vosh and Sakai are a psyop? I don't believe Vosh... Here's what I think about Vosh, all right? He himself is not a government agent. I don't think he specifically is a government agent, all right? But I do believe that capitalism gives rise to people like him because he serves the purpose of providing an outlet to people for radical rhetoric and socialist politics while being completely ineffectual in practice, because he's a liberal, you know? That's ultimately what he is at the end of the day. He's a very narrow-minded, ignorant, shallow person. Like, that's really all Vosh is, you know? But he gets promoted in the algorithm, he gets favored by advertising, and because he knows how to draw attention to himself, and because he games the algorithm and his former involvement in the Destiny community, he is part of a larger op, but that's just because he's an extension of Chomsky, really. Chomsky is part of that op as well. I'm not saying Chomsky knowingly is a glowy, or knowingly is doing these things, but I believe figures like Chomsky and Vosh are functionally they serve the purpose of controlled opposition. They're basically co-opted leftism made manifest, and that's the purpose they serve. That's the reason why they get promoted as much as they do. That's the reason why they see the support that they do, and that's the reason why you'll see Vosh's face on the Kyle Kulinski show long before me. Not just because liberal media is going to perpetuate liberal media, but it's also because the system props up people like this, you know? That's basically it. Chomsky indirectly gets money from the NED, I think. I mean, he literally works for MIT. But anyways, if I were the U.S. National Secretary of State, I would be going out to infiltrate any left-wing groups or pay money YouTubers to mangle socialism because socialism is growing. Yeah, exactly, you know? Knowingly or not, he is part of a larger op. If he's not being paid, he is being promoted, and he is being favored by the algorithm, and he's being favored by some dark actors behind the scenes. I know that for a fact, you know? I'm just saying. And I'll tell you what the most sussy thing is. The most evidence that I have that Vosh is a glowy is in the fact that he has a criminology degree. Just to let you guys know, if you have a degree in criminology, you can get a job as a government agent, like a literal FBI agent, because that's like the kind of credentials that you need, like in order to basically become a secret policeman. So that's pretty sus. Also, there have been times where he jokingly says he's actually CIA. I mean, he just recently came out and admitted that he's in favor of cooing Russia. But in his interview with Kyle Kulinski, he's just openly like, oh, yeah, I'm actually CIA, you know? But I feel like within the sarcasm, within the joking, I feel like there's a kernel of truth that's, there's like a germ of truth that's in that statement. Similar to the title of my debate with him, Seething Joker Tanky gives best Joker impression while I use sneaky debate tactic. It's sarcasm, but there's a kernel of truth in the sarcasm. So he's masking. It's a really really effective mind fuck. Vosh is an extremely manipulative person, dude. Like, this dude is like, there's no doubt in my mind he's a textbook sociopath. Like, when you look at the way he engages with people, how he contradicts himself, and how he acts around people that feed his narcissism. I mean, look at what he did with Bad Empanada. Bad Empanada has made several videos calling him out, and what does Vosh do? He goes around and he platforms a fucking Zionist, pro-apartheid, pro-genocide, Israeli, basically neo-fascist. He platforms a neo-fascist just because she fillets him and because she's bashing on Bad Empanada. He literally platforms a fascist, a Zionist, and a positive beam of light out of spite for Bad Empanada, Okay, then why debate him? Glowy? Oh, then why debate him? Honestly, the only reason I would debate him at this point is because it would get eyes on my YouTube channel, and it would direct people to my channel and my ideas. I mean, really, it's free advertising. It's another thing is kind of like a pride thing for me, like, because I didn't do as well on my last debate as I feel like I could have. I feel like with newfound knowledge and information, as well as new rhetorical skills and just better debate skills in general, I feel like if I went in there with some works cited and a general idea of like what directions he's going to go, and I'm able to nail him on some subjects, I can make him look either make him look like a hugely disingenuous tool, or I can basically show how he's wrong about certain things. And that would really be the point. Showcase that he's wrong about socialism, wrong about various subjects, basically kill him with kindness. Don't, feed into his antagonisms. The goal would be put eyes on my channel, expose the truth about socialism, and in the process, make Vosh look bad. That would ultimately be the goal of it. So, just the main thing I'd be focusing on is just focusing on my arguments, not giving into his antagonisms, because that's the biggest mistake I made last time is I gave into his antagonisms. I was very nervous. I was unprepared. I gave into his antagonisms, and that's ultimately where I went wrong. So I think on a round 2, I could do much better. The only problem is that on a round 2, debating him would be much worse, because last time he went straight to the bad faith and uncharitability on the spot, but he would be, I know for a fact, if I debated him again, he would be so much worse. He would be a lot more hostile and antagonistic, very, very condescending. He would try to hold mic dominance over me. He would use it literally every trick in the book humanly possible. In a second debate with him, he would go much harder, and I would just have to look out and be prepared for that. There's no doubt in my mind that would be the case anyways. Yeah, no, he does ad hominem. That's not all he does. So this is one thing, like, I wanted to call him out on if in a potential debate with him. For me, one thing I really wanted to call him out on, is the horseshoe theory. And what I mean by this is he draws the parallel between me and a Nazi. This is what I would do. Let's say he says I'm a Nazi for making this point, or I'm like a Nazi for saying that. I'm like a Nazi, I'm basically like a neo-Nazi. And, I let him make his argument. Okay, I'm like a Nazi. And I would say, hey, audience, want to know why Vosh keeps comparing me to Nazis? It's to trigger an emotional, impulsive response in your brains to basically shut your ears down, shut your minds down, and not listen to a single word I say. He's trying to manipulate you. And I would just immediately point that out. Like, and then I would go on to explain the nuanced details of why that position is nothing like a Nazi's position. That would basically be it. Every time he tries to do like these little emotionally manipulative tricks to rouse his audience or to try and antagonize me, I would just call him out on it. And then I'd get back to making my point. Yeah, pretty sure he just refers to the first debate as, yeah, Joker tanky. Yeah, I'd probably be getting a bit of that. Vosh can probably see this video. You think he's watching this? I don't think he's watching this, man. I'm a small fry. Now I'll be living rent free in his head when we debate again, and I fucking trounce him on the topic in question. I did want to talk about actually existing socialism again, just because I'd have my statistics ready. But I kind of also want to talk about his pro-imperialist takes. Yeah, I highly doubt that he's gonna fucking debate me again. I mean, I'll try, but I just need to prepare. Yeah, he's able to access this video. I don't give a fuck. Let him. I don't give a damn. He watched Small Fries before. Yeah, I mean, he's come to my channel once. I mean, he probably will again. Like, when I make my live stream or my next video talking about him, How to Spot an Imperialist, featuring Vosh. And I'm going to review a couple clips. The first one is going to be when he's apologizing for the CIA. And he's saying that, oh, the real problem with the CIA is that they're incompetent. You know, look, they got all their agents killed. The problem with the CIA isn't the fact that they back fascist dictators and have killed millions of people or enabled the killing of millions of people. That's not the real problem with the CIA. It's not that they destabilize the global center and the global south. It's that they're incompetent. I would also call out his apologia for David Powell, the guy who backed carpet bombing and supported the Iraq war, basically warmongering politician, warmongering piece of shit. He did apologetics for him, saying, well, he was decently progressive, so, you know, it's okay that he bombed a bunch of brown people to death, you know. Like, I sit here and I try to say, why don't we have a nuanced view of Stalin, you know? Stalin's economic policy was actually on point, and he was actually a pretty good leader. It's like, no, he's a dictator. He's like, you know, he just immediately flips the fuck out, but then he'll turn around and bend over backwards and capitulate to liberalism, you know? Like, all the nuance in the world, nuance troll for liberalism, but then, like, if you try to have nuance for socialism, he just turns into a cold warrior. And then the third clip is the same clip that Baden Panada reviewed, where he's basically saying that America should militarily intervene with Russia and America should try to coup Russia. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, no, I'm just going to make it a scripted video, but I'm going to make it short. Oh, he's live? Let's brick Vosh's YouTube chat with the challenge. Faint signal, should debate Vosh. Honestly, guys, I would, but honestly, I've got a girlfriend to take care of. She's expecting me over pretty soon. Honestly, I'm running about 25 minutes longer than I suspected, but you have my word, guys. I will attempt to debate Vosh very soon. It will definitely be on a Friday, though, as Friday is the only afternoon that I have off. So let me get my notes together. Let me comprise my works cited. I mean, I'm going to make a war room. All right, guys, let me show you something, guys. See this? This is my war face. Let me show you my war face. Okay. So war face time. I'm going to make the war room. Here we go. Now I have the war face. We're going to put war face right above praxis. Sync permissions. There we go. All right. War room for debates. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put together a document, a Word document containing all of my works cited for various statistics and subjects and like plans for where he tries to take the debate and pivot. We're gonna fucking nail him, guys. We're gonna fucking nail him. So, you guys ready for this? I set up the war room. So, debating Vosh is a waste of time. I know some people feel like that, but I don't think it's a waste of time. Not at all. Because, I mean, think about it. Think about how many people are trapped within his bubble of radical liberalism. You know, I go in there, I play by the rules, I try to kill with kindness, I'm arguing in good faith, being charitable, and I'm just making my points and calling out his bad faith as it appears, and I just try to present the facts and the data. Many of his audience will not listen to me. Many people within his audience, I'll just be the Joker tanky. That's true. But some of them will be sympathetic. Some of them will see the way he's acting and the way he's treating me, and they're going to witness that, and then they're going to be a lot more sympathetic to my side. What do? They come to my channel, they watch my content, they listen to what I have to say. Even if I only gain 100 subscribers from it, which I'm definitely going to gain more than that, but even if I only gain, say, 50 to 100 subs, that's 50 to 100 people that are pulled away from Vosh's crowd. So that's the goal. The goal is to kill with kindness. Don't give in to his antagonisms. Try to call out his antagonisms as they come and present as much statistical data as humanly possible that demonstrates the superiority of a socialist planned economy. Because all he does is shit on it and say that it fails. But honestly, this isn't even about Vosh. This is about pulling people out from the radical liberal bubble and getting people sympathetic to actual communism and Marxism-Leninism. That's the real goal of this. So, anywho, cooing Russia would be better than what we have here today. I mean, not really. Every time American intervention, America's backed a coup, virtually every outcome where America or the CIA has gotten involved has demonstrably been worse 100% of the time. Anyways, yes, it's the lurkers who benefit from good debaters. Yeah, exactly. Oh, this, my girlfriend bought it for me, but all right. So I created the war room. I'm going to go ahead and I'll worry about it later. This stream is running a lot longer than I intended it to. I'm just going to let my girlfriend know that I'm heading over there now. That works. Where are you? Where are you? Where the hell are you? Yeah, whatever. I'll message her in a bit. So yeah, I mean, if you guys got any last minute questions and comments, now's the time, because I think I'm about to depart here in a minute, as I am very thirsty, and I would, I don't know. Make sure your vitamin D blood levels are good. Wait, I don't know what you mean by that, but, all right. The Karl Marx anime. I didn't know there was a Karl Marx anime. We appreciate it. Why is Maduro still president of Venezuela and Guaido is running around holding cheap press conferences? Because don't you know, bro? Guaido's the real president. Guaido is a real Chad. You know what I mean? He's a real Chad. You know? He doesn't even have to run in the Venezuelan elections. He doesn't even need to run for the elections, and he's already president. You know? Yeah. Not only is he president of Venezuela, he's also president of Cuba, North Korea, Nicaragua, and the new Soviet Union. Do you need experience to work at FedEx? No. I don't even think you need your high school. I think you just need your high school diploma. Change in government would be preferable unless they replace Putin with literal super Hitler. Yeah, well, anyways. I set up the war room. It's amazing they haven't given Guaido the flick. He's useless. Yeah, he's also blown millions of dollars worth of CIA bucks on fucking drug trafficking. So he's blown a lot of money. That's the funny thing with Guaido. You've got Guaido and his puppets, and they're basically this fake government in exile that's running around the world proclaiming that they're the legitimate leaders of Venezuela, even though they've never even, like, that's the thing. Guaido never even ran in the election that Maduro was elected in. He wasn't even on the ballot. He never ran. He just appeared out of nowhere saying, like, yeah, I'm the real president of Venezuela. And that's what he's still claiming, yo. He's still claiming he's the president. Yeah. Anyways. Good night, guys. Take it easy. Take care.